Good evening, Mavericks. How's it going? This is Rob Reinhold. And, boy, I guess it's maybe good morning to some of you, but for most of us, it is one of the later meetings that we have here. So we have the RBA Rate Statement coming up in about 12 minutes. I don't love trading both the RBA and the RBNZ report, and let me tell you why. It's in the least liquid time of the day, and it's with the least liquid currencies that we trade. There tends to be slippage on Aussie and Kiwi stuff when there's a big move. So when there's a big move, it's super dangerous. It's super dangerous, and if you're trying to catch the move after the report, there's going to be massive slippage on your orders. And if you use like a stop limit order, you won't even get filled on them. If you try to get in before the announcement and then you put in a stop, you could easily see your stop get slipped quite a bit. The worst slippage I ever had was on an RBNZ announcement. This was probably about 10 years ago. It was like 150 pip slippage from my order to where I got filled. The market is much better now. It's much more efficient, but there's still slippage. Slippage still happens. So I always go into both the RBA and the RBNZ with kind of like a real like uneasy feeling like, okay, I don't want to stick my neck out in front of this thing because, like I said, I've seen some really big moves happen where orders weren't able to get triggered at appropriate prices. That being said, I think there is a great opportunity for what I call a second stage entry. So if you haven't watched the trading news video, it's in the advanced concept session. I highly recommend it before you ever try to trade a news announcement. There's really three strategies: to get in before the announcement, to get in on the announcement, or to get in after the announcement. I just talked about how the first two are a little tricky and have some real risk with RBA and RBNZ. For other things, it's actually my preferred way to do it. But on these, I say, you know what? I'm not going to try to catch that first move. I'm going to be there for a second stage entry. So let's jump into it and let's take a look at exactly what the market is doing and where we stand right now. One of the things you can take a look at this two different places. I have all of the currency baskets right here, and you can see they're all basically flat. I mean, look at this. Flat, down 0.1%, up 0.1%. The only thing that's up is yen. Yen is up about 0.25%. Now, you could either go there, or you could actually go to where I always have all of the yen pairs listed. So here I've got all of the yen pairs listed right here. And then you can see, wow, it's like the same number. Everything is down 0.25% against the yen. So at this point, the yen is moving and nothing else is. Really, that's what it's telling you. Like if you were to say, oh, what's Euro Aussie doing? Nothing. Look at all the Euro pairs. There's no differential between any other currencies except for the yen since the market closed at 5 p.m. We're not getting any real great indications of what's strong, what's weak, other than the yen right now is up 0.25%. This is on the back of the yen losing, 10% over the past 6 months. So this is just a bounce back in yen. We do see the futures are trading down a little bit, but we had the markets up strongly today. So this is just a really small give back. So going into the report, this is a very Australian story. This isn't going to affect the euro. This isn't going to affect the yen. This is all about Australia. And so we definitely are focused on the Australian dollar. Now let's take a look. I'm just going to pull up a chart here. I'm going to flip over to trading view. charts are definitely nicer than the charts in Interactive Brokers. Let's start off with the Aussie basket. So here we have the Aussie basket. And one of the things I wanted to talk about before the announcement was knowing your seat at the table. And I say seat at the table, we have a session in Advanced Concepts about this, and we talk about where are you in the cycle. We know that currencies have runs, and then they have pullbacks, and then they have runs, and then they have bases. We know this is how currencies move when they're trending. So we saw Aussie have a big run, and then we had about 7 or 8 days of some choppiness. Down 2 days, up 2 days, down 3 days, and then we had this big run. And here we are, we've moved down 3. Okay, we've got 2 really strong candles over the last 2 days. We are hitting our head on some resistance right up here. So the question is, where are we in the cycle? This is a daily chart. We'll take a look at some smaller time frames. But you can see here, we could be basing. This absolutely could be a base up here. We will find out on this announcement here in about 6 minutes. If we get a big green candle and that candle holds, that's going to be a confirmation that this was a bull pullback. And we're likely to see some highs up to, maybe up to 82, which is about 1.2% gain on Aussie basket, that's a big gain. But until that point, I don't love entering along here. I just don't. I see that is not the right moment. I'm not at the right seat at the table. Because of that, the only trade that I'm going to be interested in taking is going to be if the RBA comes out and whatever they say, it's taken negative. At that point, I'm going to be interested in buying that bottom. The Aussie is strong. I'm worried about there being a sell on the news. We've had a big run. This run right here is 1.2% in a currency basket in 2 days. That's a big move. So we had a big move in anticipation into this meeting. The only trade I'm looking for is I'd like to see a pullback. I'd like to see a substantial pullback and then buy that pullback on the Aussie. Now that's not going to happen right away after the announcement. I'm looking at, hey, I need this thing to come down for, an hour or two, bottom out, find some support. And if we go down into some smaller time frames, I'm going to pull up here a 4-hour chart. You can see the 4-hour chart, we're hitting up against resistance levels. A pullback to the 80 level, which would be a negative 1% move. I don't think we're going to get that. I don't think we're going to get that at all. But I'm just trying to see, okay, where are there some possible levels? There's a little bit of resistance here, a little bit more down here. This is probably a much more realistic entry point for the Aussie basket. Now, that being said, we got to pair it up against something. It's just the Aussie in general. I'm going to take a look at it first up against dollar and try to identify areas as well. So here's Aussie dollar. We've got some pretty big support here at 75.30. That's only 10 pips away. I'm going to need to see a bigger pullback than that. So I'm taking a look down here, maybe at 74.75, which is, again, that's really far away. I don't think there's going to be that big of a move. Let's see if we can go through some other pairing. Again, I like pound as a short. That was one of my favorite shorts for the week. So I'm looking at pound Aussie and I'm thinking to myself, okay, where do I want to look for entry points? If we do get the Australian dollar sells off on the news, I want to start looking for areas. And I've got this area here at 174.50. So 174.50, that's about 60, 70 pips away. To me, this is an area that I am going to be looking for a possible long entry into in the Aussie. And I do like it against the pound. And boy, this chart's looking good. It's got a velocity score of -3 on this. So everything's set up for this. Is just that entry, that timing. We're now about a minute away from the announcement because I don't have anything really pressing here. I'm not going to be, really glued to the screen here. Not like it does any good being glued to the screen and screen watching. If you haven't watched my video recently on screen watching, I recommend you do. It's not a great idea, especially if you are a trader who's a little shaky with their position management, gets pushed out of stuff based on what they see happening on the screen. It's much better to just turn your screen off and just trade your system, trade your plan. But I've built my premise is that the Aussies had a great last 2 days. I don't think there's a whole lot more upside in Aussie off of this announcement. We're up 1.2% already this week. Again, that's a big move at this point. I want to be long Aussie, but I don't want to be long Aussie here. I want to be long Aussie off of a different wave pattern, a different, I want to catch it as it's bottoming out and running up, not when it's possibly at the top of the wave and cresting over. So we'll see what happens here. All right, we do have the news is out, and you can see that it is not creating any sort of major move whatsoever in the Aussie. Okay, we're starting to get a little bit more action here. Okay, so we are getting a break higher in the Aussie. And this are the criteria that I'm just not going to participate in. I'm not going to be a participant in the Aussie that just takes off and runs. I could be missing it. I could be missing a great trade. But again, I didn't build that premise. I didn't build that premise. So for me to just jump in here is completely due to screen watching and what I'm seeing happening at the moment. We'll see what happens on this. A lot of times these things will pop and then they'll fade, and sometimes they will pop and hold in for a little bit and then have a continuation. But obviously there's some decent news here. Let's get a quick read on what they did. They weren't supposed to give any interest rate hike. Yeah, looks like they didn't, and I don't have time to read through there's really not even an article out yet to read through. But we are getting some strength in Aussie. So this is where, again, relative strength. You do want to always be on the side of relative strength. The Aussie has been a winner lately, and until it's not a winner anymore, you want to be riding that thing. And look at this price action. This is just beautiful price action where you get runs and bases. You get runs and bases. This is really strong price action here. So hopefully if anyone had a different premise, this trade looks like it's going to give you some positive pips here on a long Aussie trade. I know I was looking for a sell-off and then a bottom and hopefully snatch it up there, but looks like I'm just going to be tucking in and going to sleep tonight without having anything on. And I'll look at things again in the morning. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. And if this is one of your first meetings, I don't see a ton of new names in here. I see a lot of old-time Mavericks in here, which is great to see. I've done hundreds of these live sessions before whatever major announcement. And you show up, you have your plan, you trade your plan, and sometimes you don't make a trade. Sometimes you make a trade and it loses, and sometimes you make a trade and it wins. And I know that sounds flippant, but that's literally the life of a trader. You just show up, sit down, you follow your system, you plan your trades out, you trade your plan, you get the results that you get. That's just how the distribution goes. And then you just show up for the next one and do the same thing. So this one, for me, wasn't a trade. For those of you that did long Aussie, at least at the moment, it looks like a great call. So happy to see that. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, I'm going to take off and let everyone go to bed. But we definitely are seeing Aussie up 0.5% now against the dollar. So that is I usually am not interested in anything under 0.5% move. That's kind of like my bottom. Like if there's not 0.5% move in something, I'm just not interested. It's just not interested at all. So this one definitely has moved enough. To be a decent trade here. Doesn't look like you have any questions. So thanks for joining me, everyone. I guess tuck in for the night. For those of you in Asia, you're just waking up in the morning, so you can't go back to bed. You got a full day ahead of you. Thanks for joining, everyone. Take care. Goodbye.